Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today is another book haul, but it's not manga, thankfully. Today I want to talk about some of the nonfiction books I've bought recently, or at least like throughout this year, because some of these I bought earlier on in the year, and I think maybe one or two at the end of last year, but I want to talk about them because I'm very excited to read them. That's why I bought them. So let's get into it. Let's do this nonfiction book haul. So first I want to start off with the fact that some of these are literally like, I bought that because of the cover too. Like it was in tandem. Like I saw the cover and I was like, how could I not read this? This book being one of them. And The 2000s Made Me Gay, Essays on Pop Culture by Grace Perry. So with some of these, I'm going to read the back to you. Because like I really literally just bought this one, and some of them I've had for a while now that like I don't really like, obviously I know what it's about, but I couldn't tell you in a very like easy way to understand. So starting with The 2000s Made Me Gay, today's gay youth have dozens of queer peer heroes, both fictional and real, but former gay teenager Grace Perry did not have that luxury. Instead, she had to search for queerness in the largely straight teen cultural phenomenon the aughts had to offer. Lindsay Lohan's Fall from Grace, Gossip Girl, Katy Perry's I Kissed a Girl, Country Error, Taylor Swift, and Seth Cohen jumping on a coffee cart. And for better or worse, these touchstones shaped her adult identity. She came out on the other side like many millennials did, in her words, gay as hell. Throw on your Von Dutch hats and join Grace on a journey back through pop culture moments of the aughts before the cataclysmic shift in LGBTQ plus representation and acceptance, a time not so long ago, which many seem to forget. So this absolutely sounds like it's going to be hilarious. And I mean, I'm not really sure how old Grace Perry is, but I'm a millennial. So a lot of this stuff I'm going to know, especially when it comes to Gossip Girl. Used to freaking love that show. So really excited about reading this one. Next up is Women Don't Owe You Pretty by Florence Given. This was another one of those like, oh, the cover. I mean, how could you not? And the interesting thing is there's people on TikTok that I follow who had just recently talked about reading this. So I was like, oh, okay, it was meant to be. I had to buy this. And it's like a few other ones in here too that I was like, oh, I saw that. And it's like, well, it must have been fate. So this is a vibrantly illustrated primer on modern feminism for the Instagram generation, encouraging us to question the insidious narratives that hold us back from self-acceptance, self-love, and living our most authentic lives. With her refreshingly audacious voice and unmistakable art style, Florence Given explores all corners of the conversation, from overcoming insecurity projection and the tendency to find comfort in other women's flaws, to how to recognize and fight against the male gaze and other toxic cultural baggage, to embracing sex and body autonomy. Women Don't Owe You Pretty is here to remind us that we owe the world nothing, least of all pretty. I don't know who Florence Given is, and that's fine. To be fair, I don't think that we're going to get I don't know that we're going to get a lot of very deep into intersectionality. I think this is still going to be a fun read, but I think we're kind of going like some surface level kind of feminism. I could be wrong. But, you know, self-acceptance, self-love, we will see. But I'm still excited to read this because I agree, women don't owe you pretty. Next up is Revolting Prostitutes, The Fight for Sex Workers' Rights. This is by Molly Smith and Juno Mack, a book I have been waiting for by Sylvia Federici? I'm definitely gonna try to find out what the person's name is on TikTok who I saw talk about this and read this, because that's the reason why I got this. I had to order it offline. This is definitely pro-sex work. I have quite a few friends that are in that line of work. I love and support them. I think that it's important to educate yourself and be supportive in all ways possible. So this is The Fight for Sex Workers' Rights, and I'm very excited to read. There's a lot of blurbs on the back. Let me try to, I don't know who some of these people are. That's my bad. Ooh, well, I might have to read some of these other ones for the people to blurb from. What is that? Juno Mack and Molly Smith are sex workers and activists with the sex worker advocacy and resistance movement SWARM. Mack and Smith live in London and Edinburgh respectively. I can't read. So excited about this. The person who talked about this said I'm pretty sure they said they gave it 5 stars. So I'm absolutely excited to read this. Next up is Disability Visibility, First Person Stories from the 21st Century, edited by Alice Wong. This I actually discovered on Twitter, No Name's Book Club. They recommended this one. So a celebration and a source of deep education for many to bear witness and feel seen by the vastness of disabled stories, voices, and backgrounds. That's a blurb by Jennifer Baker, editor of Everyday People, The Color of Life. As a deaf Asian American, it wasn't until recent years that I started considering myself disabled. This is a very informed starting point for anyone who, like myself, would like to get a better understanding of disability as a massive and beautifully nuanced spectrum. To Alice Wong, words like diversity and intersectionality aren't just buzzwords. They are marching orders. Everyone should take in the wisdom woven throughout this book. 1 in 5 people in the U.S. lives with a disability. Some are visible, others are less apparent, but all are underrepresented in media and popular culture. Now, just in time for the 30th anniversary of Americans with Disabilities Act, activist Alice Wong brings together this urgent, galvanizing collection of contemporary essays by disabled people. So I've had this since like the beginning of the year, and I absolutely want to read it. I'm very excited about reading this eventually. I want to read all of these this year. I really want to. But either way, I'm really excited to read this one. So this one, Grieving While Black, an anti-racist take on oppression and sorrow by Bricia Wade. So the reason why I ended up getting this was kind of like, I don't necessarily think it was by accident, but I guess so. So I was looking for a different book about grieving for my mom. I lost my grandmother. She lost her mother this year. So I wish I could remember the book I got her, but I saw this. It was like literally right beside that book. So I was like, oh, well, I'll be picking this one up too. So, an explanation of grief and racial trauma through the eyes of a Black end-of-life caregiver. Most of us understand grief as sorrow experienced after a loss, the death of a loved one, the end of a friendship, or a change in life circumstances. Bricia Wade approaches grief as something that is bigger than what's already happened to us, as something that is connected to what we fear, what we love, what we aspire toward. Drawing on stories from her own life as a Black woman, from the people she has midwifed through the end of life, she connects sorrow not only to specific incidents, but also to the ongoing trauma that is part and parcel of systemic oppression. So, this is going to be a really short read. I think this might even be less than 100 pages. It's only 167 pages, and that's the conclusion. So, yeah, excited to read this. I think I could absolutely read this year. But it's going to be a heavy topic, so we'll see how long it takes me to get through it. But has anyone else read this? I'd love to know if anyone's read this yet. I'd love your thoughts on it, but I'm really excited to read it. Next up, a lot of people have already heard of this book. White Tears, Brown Scars, How White Feminism Betrays Women of Color by Ruby Hamad. Heard great things about this book. Absolutely cannot wait to read it. This is, well, let me read the back for you. Explosive book of history and cultural criticisms argues that white feminism has been a weapon of white supremacy and patriarchy deployed against Black and Indigenous women and all colonized women. It offers a long overdue validation of the experiences of women of color, taking us from the slave era, when white women fought in court to keep ownership of their slaves, through the centuries of colonialism, when they offered a soft face for brutal tactics, to the modern workplace. White Tears, Brown Scars tells a story of white women's active participation in campaigns of oppression. Oh man, what's the book that my husband bought me? Lifting While We Climb. That was a fantastic book. And that was really one of those eye-opening books, in my opinion, which I'm sure we will touch on in this too, of how there were, when it comes to the suffrage movement, obviously most of us, who are we kind of told and see in our mind when we think about that as white women? But white women were not the only people who were fighting for women's rights to vote. There was quite a few Black women who were doing that, but also alongside trying to fight for the right to vote, they were also trying to pass anti-lynching legislation. And sadly, in a lot of instances, you know, to be honest, it kind of seemed like every instance, these Black female activists were kind of stopped at every twist and turn because they were told, well, we don't really know if we should talk about that. We want people to believe we want people to like change and like be a part of our cause. And we just think that, you know, talking about the lynching might make people feel uncomfortable, to the point where, you know, at one point after so many like failures, I can't remember the women's name who were white, like at the top of the, I don't want to say organization, we'll just say organization. They felt so defeated, especially when black men got the right to vote. That was just too much, okay? That they were like, okay, let's start appealing to racist white women in the South, women who are from families of slave owners, are slave owners, so on and so forth. And now we're going to completely take race out of it completely. We can't even talk about it. We only are going to focus on white women's right to vote because that has to come first. So okay, all of that to say, I'm pretty sure that that's going to come up in this book too. And just how, you know, oftentimes, well, I just think like it's, how should I summarize this? Basically, we're going to get into how oftentimes when it comes to white feminism, it's not intersectional. I think that's like the gist. And that's what we're probably going to miss from You Don't Own Me Pretty, but we'll see. I don't want to judge it beforehand, but I'm feeling like we're probably going to be missing some aspects of intersectionality when we talk about, okay, women experiencing sexism. Yes, they do. What about black women experiencing sexism along with racism? So the intersections of that, will we talk about that? We shall see. But I've had several people in my life read this. They liked it. I can't wait to get into it. How the Pro-Choice Movement Saved America, Freedom Politics, and the War on Sex. This is by Christina Page. Oh, my cover is dirty. That makes me sad. Wow. You know, I got this a few months ago. Maybe not a few months ago. Maybe a month or two. That's a few. Whatever. I think I got this at the beginning of August is what I'm trying to say. And look what just happened in Texas and other states in America. So what a time to read this. Am I right? I'm obviously pro-choice. Well, obviously, I don't know if I've ever talked about that. I am, so now you know. But excited to read this. I have several other like books about pro-choice that I've read in the past. Maybe I could do a, if you like this, read this situation. Like I even have a book recommendation. I'll try to put the cover up because I can't remember what the title is, but I read that in a book club with my sister and my mom right after the 2016 election. And it was more like, kind of like intro into being pro-choice. You know, if you're already someone who's very pro-choice, feminist, blah, 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 you kind of already know this thing. So it's more like a refresher on what you already know versus like super educational to someone who might have been like anti-choice or just like maybe didn't care at all. So I'm excited to read this. Also, the cover is gorgeous. I don't know why. I know you probably can't tell, but I love the color pink. So yeah. Next up is How We Fight White Supremacy. This is by Akiba Solomon and Kenria Rankin. I'm sorry, these lights in my contacts, everything's like having an astigmatism sucks. So I look like I need bifocals. Sorry. A celebration of Black resistance and a blueprint for the fight for freedom and justice. We are facing unprecedented attacks on our democracy, our dignity, and our hard-won civil rights. If you're Black in the U.S., this is not new. As Color Lines editors Akiba Solomon and Kenria Rankin show, Black Americans subvert and resist life-threatening forces as a matter of course. In these pages, Solomon and Rankin bring together leading Black voices who offer wisdom on how they fight white supremacy. It's a must-read for people well steeped in resistance work and for the next generation of freedom dreamers. I got this at the beginning of the year. This was like on one of the tables in Barnes & Noble. I don't know that I've heard anybody said that they read it yet. That doesn't mean that someone hasn't talked about it. If you haven't heard anybody talk about this, get ready for me to do it. Excited. And lastly, The Language of Fanaticism, Cultish by Amanda Montell. So this is the same author who wrote the book Word Slut, and I loved that book. I thought it was really, really cool. It's kind of like how, you know, about certain words that, you know, change its meaning over time, like kind of like with pop culture, with the times, with the whatever. And I just thought that was a really fun book. I liked it. So this one though analyzes the social science of cult influence, how cultish groups from Jonestown and Scientologists to Soul Cycle and social media gurus use language as the ultimate form of power. We're not going to get too deep into it, but you know, there is a certain group of people now who are giving off cultish vibes. They're not necessarily drinking Kool-Aid, but they're slurping down dewormer for horses. So don't come for me. Nobody come for me. Please don't come for me. But anyway, I'm excited to read this. The same person who talked about the book on sex workers also just read this one, and I'm pretty sure they rated this 5 stars. So very excited to read pretty much all of these. I think that, you know, I will give them 5 stars. Although some, you know, I don't know, for other people who read like nonfiction and memoirs that have a very like deep subject matter, it's one of those things where you like really enjoyed it, but like, how do I rate this 5 stars? Because like, obviously I'm gonna rate it 5 stars, but like the 5 stars and the way that I rate fiction and young adult stuff is completely different. So I think all of these will get like the essence of 5 star, you know, basically. But yeah, so excited to read all of these books. Have you guys read any of these? Are there any that you are interested in reading? Like it's been on your TBR, or maybe that you're interested now that I've talked about them. I'd love it if some more people read these. I'd love to talk about it with other people. So yeah, with that being said, thank you for watching my video. If you like the video, please like the video. If you like the video, subscribe to your girl, okay? Hit the notification bell. Do yourself that favor. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a good day. Goodbye.